It's no secret that high quality property management can take a lot of time, energy, and resources. Combine that with multiple platforms needed to perform the various tasks such as accepting applications online, screening applications, creating leases, e-signing leases, collecting rent, handling maintenance issues, doing taxes each year, etc. And suddenly, it becomes overwhelming. Then you throw in tenant, owner, and service provider interactions, and things can get nightmarish. That's why TenantCloud was built and continues to be improved upon on a regular basis from the feedback given to us by our users. Our goal is to help you make more money with less effort, less time, and definitely less stress, and TenantCloud reports are just another way of doing just that. Everybody needs reports, that much is true. But why spend more time on them than necessary when you can automate nearly the entire process, including not having to send anything to anyone, including owners? That's right. No more compiling reports on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual basis to send to owners. Owners can access the reports you choose to share all on their own time whenever they want. Join us as we dive into a quick webinar to show you how TenantCloud helps you focus more on the things that you enjoy doing and less time, energy, and resources spent on reporting. A few of the things that we're going to cover are accounting to reports flow, report types, report filters, real-life scenarios and examples, process of running reports, and much, much more. Stay tuned. So from the dashboard, when you first log into TenantCloud, the reports button is going to be on the far left menu. So you go to the left and click on reports, and that is going to take you into your reports dashboard. And on your reports dashboard, you'll immediately notice that there's a filter up top on the top left-hand corner. And if you click that filter, you can see financial, rental, or calculator style reports, or you can view all. And by default, it is set to all. You can also use the search box here in the top right-hand corner to search the various reports by keyword. And these are going to be the words that are like on the top here of each report. So if you wanted to find a report about payments, you would type in payment, and that is going to show you each of the reports that has something regarding payments. And if you just click X, it'll go back to the default all. And you can also change your view of the reports. So if it's easier for you to view your reports in a list style as opposed to a grid, you can do that as well. So looking at these reports, you'll notice that these ones here have the green bookmark on it, and this one is a gray bookmark. What that means is I have identified these reports as my favorites, and so by default, they will always show at the top of the list. So for instance, if I, as a property manager or a landlord, I use lease statements more often than anything, I would just click on that and it would bump it all the way up to the top of my page showing my reports. So this is a great way to prioritize which reports you use on a daily basis versus the ones that you might only use once a month, once a quarter, or maybe even just once a year. So jumping right into the reports here, we are able to click on the view button on each of these reports. And when you click on the view button, you're brought into the overview tab first, which this is not available on every single report. This is only on, I believe, currently one report, and it is going to be released on future reports in the near future to where it'll show you these graphs of what is going to be in the report in general. So you would want to click on Generate Report, and that takes you to your filters, where you can select filters, dates, properties, owners, etc., or tenants if it's a report related to tenants. And a lot of the reports are also going to have optional columns which you can include in the report. And if you do not have them selected, it will not show that information in that particular report. You can also choose to group by payment category. And this is an option in a couple different reports for various information. But this particular one is saying that it will group it by payment category so that you can see things in a more organized fashion. And so instead of grouping it by things like date and so on and so forth. So each one of these has a number next to it, and you'll want to select, you want to go through each step. So consider these numbers as steps, and you want to check each step to make sure that you are selecting the filters or the drop-down items and the optional items as well to make sure that you're pulling a report that has the information that you want in it. And you can play around with these and see what the various reports look like when you test the various options in each one. Now, the way that the transactions and the accounting stuff gets into these reports is through the accounting tab, as well as through the move-in agreements that you create for your tenants and invoices that you submit as part of maintenance requests. And anywhere you enter or create an invoice is going to generate data that is going to be showing up in these various reports. And how you record that expense or that income is going to determine which report it shows up in and how it shows up and who it shows up for. And just to illustrate what I mean by that, if you go to the accounting tab and you click money in and you click income and you go to the category and you type in, let's just say tenant charges and fees, and let's say you have let's do a pet charge. And let's say that pet charge, a lot of property managers who manage rentals for owners are not going to want those fees to show up on the owner reports or the reports that an owner would typically view, such as the property owner statement report, because the owner does not receive any of the income from those fees many times that a property management company is charging. So for instance, if I was charging a tenant a $50 pet charge that is not being shared with the owner, I would leave that the toggle set to not visible to owner. If I am sharing the profit of this, or this is going directly to the owner, and I would just get a percentage of this in the form of a management fee from the owner, then I would say yes, it's okay for this to be visible to the owner. So, and I'll show you that in a second in the reports that we look at here. But if I set this to no, not visible to owner, this will not show up in the property owner statement report, which is generally the report that you are going to share with an owner to view. So they will not know that I received this fee from the tenant. And that's typically built into your management agreement with the owners, that there are certain fees that you may charge tenants who are moving in that the owner may not be aware of, or that you just state that they're just not going to receive any of those fees in the form of income, and they just in general won't know about it. So jumping back to the reports, we will look real quick at a tenant statement. Now, each of the reports has a short description of what that report is going to contain, what information it's going to contain. And so for the tenant statement, you'll see that it shows all income from tenants. It includes paid and unpaid invoices, displays deposits and credits, and it shows general income. So again, this shows the overview first, but you'll want to jump into generating the report. And here, we were looking at this a little bit ago. You can set the date range. So let's just say you want just 1 month of data, so June 15th to July 15th. Active leases only, so you just want the one tenant or the tenants that are active at that property. And you can leave it to all properties and all tenants, or you can filter it down to a property or specific tenants. And then you can select the accounting type, cash or accrual. And then you can select which optional columns should be in the report. In this case, you can choose payment method, lease duration, or even the lease number if you care about that information. And you can choose to group the payments by category. In this case, we'll just leave it like this. And you can click on download the report and choose either a PDF or an Excel file. It doesn't make a difference which one you choose. And once you download it, it will download the report and you can view it in a PDF viewer or an Excel viewer as well. Now, this particular report is typically going to be used in the event that for instance, a tenant contacts you and says, I want to have a statement for my rent. Now, keep in mind your tenants can log into their TenantCloud accounts and they can view their tenant statements from their TenantCloud account. They can see what they've paid. They can see the details of the payments and the invoices you've charged them. But in the event that they just want a full printout and all the details on it, you can provide them with their tenant statement. And this is going to have all of the information about what they've paid, the dates they've paid it, and so on and so forth. This is also helpful for if you are filing an eviction or if you are sending a tenant a final account statement after they've moved out. So this would be good for most property managers will send out a property statement within a week or two after the tenant moves out. It's best practice is to send it out within a couple of days. That in that case, just in case the tenant has any disputes, it gives you time to review the disputes. It's fresh in your mind and you still have all of the information. You should be keeping a lot of the information like photographs of the walkthrough and stuff like that anyway. But the quicker you do it, the fresher it is on your mind and you're able to address things a lot faster. Whereas if you wait until that 29-day mark to send out a final account statement and then the tenant comes back 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, sometimes months later, it makes things much more difficult, especially if they're filing disputes for charges and things of that nature. So it's better to get it out the door as quickly as possible. And this provides all the details that you're required to share with a tenant as part of their final account statement when a tenant does move out. The next report is the property owner statement report. And the property owner statement report, and this is the one that I was talking about a second ago, where you can share this with the owner, and this is going to hide things like pet fees that you have hidden from the owner. Basically things that have nothing to do with them and they don't care because it doesn't affect their accounting. This is only going to show anything that's relevant to the actual owner. So again, there's the various filters that you can use here and the different drop-down menus, whether you want to sort it by property or just by owner. And anything that's related to this specific owner is going to show up on this report. And again, you have the options for accrual or cash, as well as the optional columns that you can choose to be in the reports. And if a owner wants to see past leases versus active leases, you can choose to show inactive leases on this report as well. Now, again, keep in mind, if the owner is connected with you on TenantCloud, the owner can actually see this report if you share it with them without having to ask you for a copy of it. And that's a really cool part about TenantCloud's reports, is that it really saves you a lot of time of having to generate reports and send out reports for all your owners every month or every quarter or every year, because they have direct access to that. And you can find that if you go to contacts and then select owners. And then once you're in owners, you can click view on the owner and you can go to their properties tab. Now on the properties tab under this owner, you can see that there are 3 properties that this owner is assigned to. And you'll see the little button up here, it's a toggle that says reports. And right here, you can see automatically that I have shared some reports that I allow them to see and some that I do not allow them to see. Now, you can change that by just clicking configure, and you can select which reports you want this owner to be able to access from their TenantCloud account. And what's really cool about this is the property owner statement is right here. You can click show and click update. And now that is the only report that this owner is going to be able to access on their own independently without reaching out to you to ask for that report. So this is really, really, really cool. It's a huge time saver. And this property owner statement is only going to show them the information that is relevant to their specific accounting. It's not going to show your operating expenses or anything like that that are related directly to your property management company. So jumping back to the reports, the management fees and the owner distributions and contributions, those are all going to show up on the property owner statement. So those are things that are related to the owner. So it's going to show those in the various columns. And you can see that here. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's just pick a property and we'll click preview. And this will load up a just a preview, just a sample report showing you what this property owner statement is going to look like. So tenant charges and fees, these are ones that are not being hidden from the owner. These are ones that that toggle was selected to yes, the owner can see it, along with rent and things of that nature. And you can scroll down, you can see some cleaning, general cleaning charges, and this is a pretty long list here, and it looks like I haven't charged any property management fees or owner distributions or anything. If it did, it would just show up in these same line items like you see these shown here, with a money in and a money out column along with a balance. And the balance down here is showing that there is a balance of $19,964.29. And I don't have a reserve indicated, so based on this before any management fees, if I were to create a management fee invoice, then I would want to pay that first before sending an owner distribution. But this indicates that the owner distribution would be $19,964.29 without a reserve and without management fees. And that is the property owner statement report. If you have any questions about this, you can feel free to reach out to us through our online ticketing system, and one of our team members will be happy to assist you. But you can see it's pretty straightforward and provides you all of the general information that you're going to need and that the owner is going to need about money in, money out balance, and who's paying what, where it went, what date it went out, what date it came in, what unit it's for, what property it is, etc. And the next report that we're going to look at is the profit and loss statement report. And we'll go over the general income and general expense in a little bit as well. But the profit and loss statement is basically a summary of these two reports, but with a little bit more information, and it combines all of the data from these two reports into a single report. And you can tell from the description here what this report shows. It shows the profits and losses of a property manager or of a company. It does not include property-related payments, and it includes management fees, tenant fees, and general income expense. And what that means is this report is specifically geared for the property manager or the property management company. It will not show anything related to the ownership of the properties or to the property itself. It's strictly based on what is your management profit and loss. That's essentially what this report is going to show. So when you click view, you can actually go in here and you can see this report, and you can choose a lot of the same options that you see in the other reports, such as the accounting type, if you want to view it by specific categories, the time frame, which optional columns you want to show up, and so on and so forth. And you just hit preview, and that will bring up the report with the settings that you just set. And it'll pull the data associated with those settings. So here you can see these are all management fees that I have collected. Again, this is just a sample report. This is not real. But these are figures for management fees that I charged a owner. And these are tenant charges and fees that I collected that did not go to the owner. They came directly to me, and so on and so forth. And so this is a really long report. And it totals everything up, as well as the expense column at the bottom. You can see I don't have a lot of expenses. Obviously, that's not an accurate statement for a property management company, but this just gives you an idea of what information is going to be on this report and how it's going to be displayed. And it is important to note here that for these management fees on this report, management fees are deducted from the rental income prior to sending an owner distribution to the owner. And I just want to touch on this real quick because we do get a lot of questions about how this works from property managers and from landlords. And Traditionally in property management, the way that an owner distribution and management fees work is the property manager manages a property. They collect the rent from the tenant. So let's say the tenant pays $1,000 on the 1st, and they set the owner distribution to the 15th. So what happens is that $1,000 comes in, and then let's just say there's 0 expenses from the 1st through the 15th. The owner would get a $1,000 distribution because the tenant paid $1,000 in rent. However, if you are charging a management fee, let's just say $100, you would actually deduct $100 from that owner distribution prior to sending it to them. So actually you would only send them $900 on the 15th of the month, and that is their owner distribution. You don't actually have to send the money anywhere for the management fee because the funds are already in your operating account, as long as you've set up your accounting properly by setting up your bank accounts in your Dwolla and not the owner's. So I do want to touch on that just to make sure that we answer and address that in this webinar. Management fees are deducted from the rent prior to sending the owner distribution to the owner. And when you do that, it will properly account for it, and it'll show up in your profit and loss statement, as well as your general income statement. And so that is the profit and loss statement report. And we'll move on to the next part. The next one we're going to take a brief look at is the operating statement. The operating statement shows paid income and expense invoices. It does not include liabilities, and it is usually used to monitor cash flow. And so this is kind of like a high overhead report. So you can see here, we'll select a property and click on preview. And again, this is going to generate a report for us. Without downloading anything, it's just going to generate a brief snapshot. And you can see what it does is it puts everything into categories and subcategories and totals it all up for the date range that we selected. In this case, it's showing that rent that has been paid is $3,300. We also had a prorated rent that was charged at some point, and then tenant charges and fees in the amount of $290. It totals it up for you. And that's your income snapshot for that property for these dates. And again, that's just a high view. It's not showing you a breakdown per tenant or anything like that. And then your expense amounts, you can see I have not had any expenses for this property, $1. But if it were more, again, it would break it down similar to these with the primary category and then subcategory and then total it all up. Even if it was 50 invoices, it would be just total it up into a total amount here in this column. And that is the property owner, or that is the operating statement report. Again, that's a high view report. Typically, this is going to be used in conjunction with another report, typically something like the property statement report or something like that, where you can then break down and compare the individual categories and see what money came in and what money came out based on individual categories. The next report we're going to look at is the rent roll report. This is one of the reports that is most commonly used in conjunction with tenant statements and property owner statements, and that is a report that is generated as of the date that you select it, and it contains information on active leases, as well as includes a list of tenants, liabilities held, rent, and the balance owed. So if you click view, you will see here that you can select by property, or you can just choose all properties. And in this particular report, you have quite a few more options as far as what optional columns you would like to see in the report. So depending on what information it is you want to see, you can select this. So for instance, if you are having a leasing agent or an assistant manager, or yourself, you're just reaching out to tenants who have past due balances or anything like that. One of the quick ways that I've done that in the past is I'll just select tenant email and tenant phone. And when you click preview, it'll pull up the rent roll report with each of those tenants' contact information. And it'll show if they have a balance. And so you can literally just go down this list and say, if any of these people had a balance, like this person has a $75 balance or whatever that might be. You can then see the phone number for that person and reach out to that person to say, hey, records show that you owe rent. This is the amount. And it's just a really simple way to be able to use this report to reach out to tenants. Now, if you weren't reaching out to anybody and you're just looking at this for general records, then you can make the report a lot more condensed by simply removing the tenant phone and the tenant email. And it takes those columns out so you can focus on the information that's actually important and relevant to the task that you're trying to accomplish. One of the cool things is it does show the lease duration, so you can get a quick snapshot of where leases are, when they started, when they're going to end, what their rents are, so that you can know if you're going to be scheduling a rental increase for a potential renewal. So for this one, their leases, a lot of these people, they're not ending until 2020. But if they were ending, say, for instance, in the next 60 days, this is a quick way to get a snapshot of, oh yeah, I have this lease ending in 60 days and they're paying $850. Well, market rent is now $875 or $900. I'm going to send them a renewal offer for a rental increase. And so, again, this is just a quick snapshot. The rent roll is one of the most popular reports that both landlords and property managers use to manage their properties. Managing rentals, I would be looking at this almost on a daily basis for all of my properties. Now, granted, that was hundreds of tenants, but in general, this was the report that I would go to on nearly a daily basis. So jumping back out of the rent roll report, the general income versus the general expense reports, this is going to be somewhat of a better breakdown of your profit and loss statement. This is going to show you general income payments, and we'll jump into this real quick just to show you an example of a report and see what type of information I've got here for this. So you can select the report date range. Now keep in mind, this is a general income report. This is not about a specific property. This is a general income report for you as a property management company. This is not related to the owner in any way. Typically, I mean, I don't want to say it's not ever associated with the owner because everybody's got a little bit different of arrangement and different reasons for using TenantCloud or platforms like this. But in general, the general income report is going to be related more so to the property management entity and not so much to the actual owners of the properties that they're managing. So you could select general income, and you could select accrual or cash, and you can choose each of these various options to see what type of information you want to show up on the report. And again, this is not going to show information related to the owner. And you can select, again, the dates and application fees and so on and so forth to get the information that you want. The general expense report is going to look pretty much the same way with very similar filters as you'll see right here. You can select the report date range. You can select the filter payment subcategories, so for payments not income. And you can select the accounting type, again, accrual versus cash. And you can check which optional columns should be in this report as well. So for instance, again, we'll pull something here real quick. Let's just back out of that and just do all categories. And we will select preview, and that will generate a report that shows you we have a consulting fee for $250. And as you can see from the consulting fee, this is an expense that has been generated by the management company. And so that is why it's showing up on this report. This is something that the management company has actually paid as an expense for their company. This is not associated with the property itself or anything that has to do with the owner in terms of accounting. So this general expense report and the general income report, that's what both of these reports are going to be showing, is only stuff that is relevant to your property management company, not to the owner, not to the property. Like if you go out, take a client out for dinner or whatever, and it can be written off as a business expense, that's the type of stuff that's going to show up in these reports. So with that being said, we will move on to the next report, which is our rent range report. And it's called something a little bit different on here. It is called the Property Marketing Report, and it is powered by Rent Range. And the Rent Range report, the summary says here, it makes detailed rent estimates, it provides data on market trends, and it gives insight for property investment analysis purposes. And so to summarize that, what that means is when you pull a Rent Range report, you're going to put in your property address, and it will pull rental benchmarks around the market, in that market for that property, and break it down by neighborhood, and give you a breakdown of how much other property managers and rental properties, or how much property managers are charging for their rental properties, how much they're listing them for, how much people are paying for similar rentals compared to the one that you entered. So if you put in, for instance, a 2-bed, 1-bath, actually in this case it's a 3-bed, 1-bath at 5904 15th Avenue, Hyattsville, Maryland 20782, it is going to give you a breakdown of other properties in that area that are comparable to that specific rental unit that you entered. And it tells you all of the data, how it's comparing it. So for this one, it's saying it's a 2-mile radius search, and that there are a total of 60 comps that it is comparing it to. And so you can kind of just get an idea of what a report like that would look like just by looking through some of these numbers. And you can also tell how long a rental unit has been vacant in that county, how many days on the market versus vacancy in the county. So the reason that a property manager would pull a report like this is because you want to make sure 2 things. One, you want to make sure that you're not leaving money on the table. You could think that you're getting a great rent on your rental unit, but in fact, you might be $200 or $300 cheaper than comparable properties in your neighborhood. And on the flip side of that, you might be charging too much compared to your competition in the area, and that is costing you money because your unit is sitting vacant longer than the average rental is sitting vacant in that county. Maybe your rental is sitting on the market for 30 days vacant, whereas the average in your area is only 14 days. And so then you can look at the rental range and kind of figure out if maybe you're too high on your rental, or maybe it'll identify something else that's causing issues. Maybe you need to take a look at your marketing or something of that nature, or maybe it's the curb appeal. Whatever it is, this gives you an indication of whether or not you are within the averages. And if you're outside of any of those averages, then that can kind of raise red flags for you, and you know that you need to go and identify what the issue might be, so that you can either A, ensure that you're making the right amount of money, rental income that you should be making, and 2, make sure that you're not losing money by being overpriced compared to other rentals in your neighborhood, or maybe there's just something about your property that needs to be adjusted so that you are a attractive property for tenants and applicants in your area that are looking for rentals. So that is the Rent Range report. It's very simple to get this. This is the only paid report in TenantCloud right now, and it provides invaluable data for you that you will absolutely benefit from having for one reason or another. And so to get that report, you just click Get the Report here, and you will start to enter in all of the information that you want to pull for that particular property. So moving on to the next section is we just want to recap a lot of the reports here. We don't necessarily have time to go through every single one of these reports. They each contain a lot of data, and each report gives you something a little bit different. So we've really gone over the top reports that most property managers use on at least a daily, if not weekly basis. But there are other reports, such as the tax preparation report, which is a big one for our property managers that use TenantCloud at the end of the year. And I'll tell you why it is important and why so many property managers use it, is because everything that you enter into the accounting system in TenantCloud is recorded and gets accounted for in the tax preparation report, so that when you pull this report at the end of the year, you can pretty much just print this out and file your taxes. It records all of your property expenses. It's basically acts as your Schedule E, and you can see that right here. So at the end of the year, generally the property, which is the Schedule E, is going to have a zero balance. Money either went out to the property management company, or it went out to the owner, or it got refunded to a tenant after they moved out. Their liabilities got refunded to them or got applied to charges. And so this accounting system in TenantCloud through this report basically creates your Schedule E for you. And that's on top of the DWOLA sending out the 1099 reports at the end of the year and so on and so forth. This is the tax prep report, and this will essentially help you finish your taxes at the end of the year. And it really eliminates a lot of the work that you have to do in tracking income, tracking expenses. Where did money go? When did it go there? Who did it go to? And so on and so forth. So the tax prep report is a huge report. It's awesome. Most of the property managers and DIY landlords that use TenantCloud use this report. It is huge. We highly encourage you to explore this report and definitely use it at the end of the year for when you are preparing to do your taxes. Aside from that, there are a few cool, helpful reports like the Amortization Tracker. This is a calculator report. This isn't really a report. This is more of a calculator. So you can put in some of your property information, such as your loan period, the loan start date, and you can, let's see, we'll just plug in a couple numbers here, and the loan amount, let's just put in 100,000, and let's just make up some numbers here, and you can just click calculate, and this is going to pull up your amortization tracker, which is basically an amortization schedule. And so you can use this as a general guideline. You can do both the table and graph, and it basically breaks down your amortization on your property. So you can download this as a PDF or as an Excel, and you can pull this report really at any time. And it's just a general calculator for you to use. So you can put in whatever numbers and figures you need here to get the information you need. The second one is the Depreciation Tracker, which again is not really a report per se. Again, this is like the amortization schedule. This is just more so of a calculator and not so much of a report. But a lot of property managers do use these and find these very helpful. So if you have use for this, then this is where you would go to access that information. So again, we'll just plug in a few numbers here and click calculate just so you can kind of see this, and you can play with this on your own time. But it's going to show you all of this information as it relates to your depreciation for your rental property. And then you can click clear and start over again with another property. So moving on, don't want to spend a lot of time on those calculators. You can kind of play around with those as you see fit and whatever information you want to get from them. But the other reports in here that are really cool is the deposit summary and provider statement. You can see payments to service providers, including any unpaid bills that are outstanding to your service providers and things like that. So, and you can also view your tenant screening report. You can find and review screening reports and search by provider or package. You can see the status of each report. So again, there's a lot of really cool reports that you can play around with in here. So we highly encourage you to just dive in and just start pulling the various reports and see what kind of data you can get out of them. And the bottom line for all of these reports is that what they do for a property manager. Reports, they take all of the information and they put it into a single place and put it into a organized fashion that you can easily and quickly review with pretty much quick snapshots, so that you don't have to sit there manually tracking finances, manually tracking move-in and move-out dates, manually tracking vacant versus occupied units, owner distributions, if you've paid them or not, all that stuff. These reports, they really help you to automate a lot of the things that over the years property managers have constantly had to figure out each day, each week, each month, each quarter. And now it's automated. Everything that you put into the system can pretty much be pulled out in one of these reports. And so it's important to keep in mind that the data that you get out of the reports is only as good as the data that you put into the system. And if you're putting in bad data into the system, you're gonna get bad data out in the reports because it can only interpret and report on what you've entered. So it is very important that you understand the accounting side of property management, understanding that TenantCloud does account for the Schedule E and that it properly records it the way that a Schedule E should be accounted for. And so just keeping that in mind, the relationships between the property manager and the owner and the tenant and the property, and how money flows into a property and from a property out to its respective recipients, that type of stuff. Those are very key things to keep in mind when you're entering data, so that when you do go to pull these reports, the reports are actually showing you relevant and factual data. So that being said, that wraps up our exploration of TenantCloud reports. I am sure that you have more questions than what we've covered, and that's fine. That's actually a great thing. We love to get questions from our users, and we love to help you out. So if you do have any questions, feel free to use this Need Help button in the bottom left-hand corner. You can just go ahead and click that and then click Submit a Ticket or Visit Help Center. When you click Visit Help Center, that takes you into here where you can select whether you're a landlord or a ServicePro or a tenant or an owner, and you can look up the things that you need assistance with. So right here you'll see we have a section dedicated to reports. So you can click Show All, and you can start looking at how to use, for instance, the Amortization or Depreciation Tracker. How do I set which reports an owner can view, like we showed you earlier, and the types of reports, and breaks down more detailed information about what each of those reports contains. And if the question is not there that you're looking for, the answer is not there that you're looking for, that's fine. Let us know. You can hit Submit a Ticket and let us know if you have an idea, or if you have a problem, or if you just need help with a report or have a question about the report. And we are more than happy to help you out. We have a team that is constantly ready to assist our users. So thank you for taking time to join us today. We genuinely appreciate you being here and sticking with us through this webinar. And this webinar will be available for users to view at a later time. We will post it to our YouTube channel. So you can go to just search TenantCloud on YouTube and go to our channel, and you will be able to see this within the next few days. And we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Thanks for attending, and we'll talk to you next time. Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending. That wraps up our pre-recorded part of the reports, but we did have a few really good questions come through. Some of them we've already answered most of the questions that have come through. There are a couple that we wanted to touch on really quick live here. The first one was we were asked how you go about creating a expense. And so I am going to share that here with you real quick. Let me jump into that real quick here. Going to expenses, you would go and you would select accounting, and then you would do money out, and you would do expense from there. And when you click on expense, there's going to be two tabs in the top, and one of them is going to say general expense. And so if you click that, that's going to record your expense as a general expense, not tied to, generally that would be if you were recording expense for like your property management company or something not tied to a specific unit. Things of that nature. If you were just doing a regular expense, not a general expense, then you wouldn't change that tab. You would just go to the property expense tab. And I'm going to share that real quick here with you. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, and so right here in accounting, you go to the accounting tab and then you click on money out and then expense. And this is where you would enter either a property related expense or a general expense. And so again, general expense would be if you were recording an expense that you wanted to show up on the reports, not tied to a specific unit, a specific property, but you can still select from various payers and payees. It's just, again, this is a general expense. The second question we had was, we worded it a little funny in the initial part of the webinar about management fees on things like outside of rent charges, such as a pet fee or pet rent. Currently, the system does not automatically charge management fees based off of pet fee charges and things of that nature, but you can manually create management fees. You can go to accounting and then money in and then management fee. And this is where you can pretty much create a management fee for any of the scenarios that you might charge a management fee outside of just normal rent charges. Otherwise, you can automate the management fees based off of the rent itself. So rent income, the system can automatically charge a management fee invoice based off of the rental income. It's just the odds and ends things. Every property management company is a little bit different. Some charge management fees for some things that other property management companies do not charge it for. So I just wanted to clear up those two questions primarily. And there was another question we answered live, if we are able to generate a report in a different language like French. Currently, we do not have the ability to do that, but you can definitely allow owners to pull the reports from their own TenantCloud accounts, and they can view that. They can copy and paste, use like Google Interpreter, things of that if absolutely necessary. We will pass that idea on to our development team for future releases for their consideration. And any other ideas that you guys have, you can always put in a idea ticket through the Help Center and let us know if things like that would be beneficial to you and to your property management operations. We love hearing ideas like that, and even if it's just a question, we love getting that type of feedback to continue improving the platform. So again, we do appreciate you taking the time to spend time with us with this webinar, and definitely provide us feedback and let us know how we did. We would love to get your feedback right now. We actually have a poll that just launched on your screen. So if you have a couple seconds to answer those two questions, we would love to get your feedback on it. And we will send you an invite if you would like to be invited to future webinars. Just let us know. You can put in a support ticket and let us know if you'd like to be added to the list to be invited to future webinars. And we'll be happy to do that. We're putting out webinars once or twice a month right now. And so if you would like to be invited to those, we're happy to do that. Again, thanks for spending